Hi, second grade. Today we are going to start a new mystery science unit. And you have a mystery science journal you got at the pickup last week, and it looks like this mystery science journal, Material Magic. And in this unit, we're going to talk about the different properties and phases of water. And today you will need your journal. And then you're going to want to find in your packet this piece of string. It might need to be unknotted. Your paper plate, paper lunch sack. So these will be your items that you need today. We're going to need those at the end of the lesson in your journal. So I'm going to screen share with you and have you watch a video. And it is called, so the lesson today is called, Why Do We Wear Clothes? And it's going to talk a little bit about what would happen if you were in the really hot sun and you weren't wearing very much clothes. What would you need to find, and how could you make something to make sure that you were taken care of? So I'm gonna get it started.
Hi, it's Doug. Imagine that you and your class are on a field trip together on a fishing boat out at sea. It's so much fun, nice and warm, you got your swimsuits on, you're gonna go for a swim in the ocean. Suddenly though, the boat runs into some rocks jutting out of the sea. They break a hole in the side of the boat and the captain yells that the boat is sinking. You all have to grab life jackets and jump overboard. Splash. Now luckily, there's a beautiful tropical island within swimming distance. So you all swim ashore. Everyone's okay. The captain of the ship says he was able to get through an emergency message sent back home before the ship sank. But help is at least a week away. That's when you start to think, oh no, now what? You're just sitting there on this island with almost nothing. How are you gonna survive for the next week? You're gonna need some kind of shelter. You're gonna need a place to sleep. You're gonna need food. You're gonna need fresh water. And most importantly, you look down and remember, oh my gosh, you're only wearing a swimsuit. Oh, it sure would have been nice to have some clothes with you. Or do you really need them? I mean, you know you're gonna need food and shelter and water, but do you really need clothes? What's the point? You're somewhere nice and warm. It could be worse. At least you've got your swimsuit. That's when you get to thinking, are there any reasons you're gonna wish you had the clothes with you on this island? And why do we wear clothes anyway? I mean, is it just to keep warm or just to avoid being embarrassed? Why do people wear clothes? Have you ever thought about that? Stop and discuss what you think.
Okay, so why do you think we wear clothes? He brought up the fact that we wear them to keep warm. We wear less when it's hot outside to keep cool. But why else would we wear clothes? Come up with a list, maybe write some things down. See how many things you can think of, or how many reasons you can think of why humans, the only mammal, wears clothes.
So why do we wear clothes? You probably were able to think of a few different reasons. Many of those reasons have to do with the weather. Depending on if it's cold or rainy or hot, or if there's bugs or mosquitoes around, notice that your clothes need to be made out of different stuff. They need to be made out of different materials. Not all materials are good for the same thing. That's because each material has certain traits or properties that makes it useful. For example, in the rain, you wear a raincoat, right? Well, a raincoat is made out of a plastic material, which has the property of being waterproof, meaning that water can't get through it. That's why it's such a good material to wear in the rain. But in really cold weather, you might wear a thick coat like this, which is lined with a material called wool. Wool has the property of being heat trapping. It keeps in the heat. Now, let me show you something surprising. This guy lives in the hot desert, and yet he's wearing a long robe. Why on earth would someone wear this in the hot desert? Well, it has to do with the properties of this material that he's wearing. This robe is made out of the material called cotton. It comes from a plant and it looks just like this. Cotton is actually the most popular material for all clothing, whether you live in the desert or not. Let's explore some of its properties. Here's one reason this guy is wearing it. Cotton blocks sunlight. See that? We call this the property of being opaque, which means it doesn't let light through. And that's what keeps this guy from getting sunburned. So that's partly why someone would wear a cotton robe in the desert. Now think about what else happens when you're in the sun. You sweat, right? Especially if you're walking around or working. Sweat can feel really sticky and uncomfortable. To be comfortable, you'd like clothes that will soak up that sweat. Well, cotton is really good at just that. It can soak up that sweat. We say that cotton has the property of being absorbent, meaning it soaks up wetness. Soft is another property we want our clothing to have since we have to wear it all day. Cotton definitely has the property of being soft. It's nice and soft. In fact, because cotton is so soft, that's probably why the clothing you're wearing right now is even made out of cotton. So cotton has properties that make it very comfortable. But now just for fun, think of a situation where feeling comfortable isn't what you want. For example, a situation where you might wear a suit of armor. Definitely not comfortable to wear, right? It's made out of steel, a type of metal. Steel is the same material that your kitchen pots and pans are made of. What properties does steel have? In what situation would you want to wear something like this?
Okay, what properties does this piece of clothing have? So is it light? Is it heavy? Is it hard or is it soft? Is it stretchy or is it stiff? Can you think of anything else that you could use to describe, or what are some properties that it might have? And then when would be a good idea to wear this and why would you wear it? So press pause for a minute, press play when you're ready to move on. Okay, how about this outfit? Okay, what properties does this piece of clothing have? Is it light? Is it heavy? Is it hard? Is it soft? Is it stretchy? Is it stiff? Is there any other words you could use to describe this piece of clothing? And then when is it a good idea to wear this? And then why would you wear this? Press pause, think about it, press play when you're ready.
So you're stuck on this desert island without any clothes except for your swimsuit. And you're gonna have to figure out where you're gonna sleep tonight and what you'll eat for food this week and where to get drinking water. But right now, what's most on your mind is the sun. The sun is beating down on you. It's so hot. As you stand there on the beach, the only thing you can think about is how much you want a hat. So what you're gonna need to make as your first piece of clothing is a hat to shade your head. Now, up till now, you might have just thought of a hat as something fun to wear. But hats can be extremely useful. Like consider this kind of hat you might have at home if you skateboard or ride a bike. It's a helmet. A helmet is a hat made of a special thick kind of plastic. This material has properties that are like steel. It's got the property of being hard and strong. But unlike steel, this plastic material also has the property of being light, which makes it much more comfortable. Since a helmet isn't going to do you any good on a desert island, though, let's consider some hats that might be useful to you. Like, what about a cowboy hat? You've probably all seen a cowboy hat before, but unless you live on a ranch or out in the desert, you might not have thought about just how useful cowboy hats are. Notice how most of this cowboy's face is covered in a shadow? A cowboy hat is great for shading your face when you're in the hot sun. That shadow is made by the hat's large brim. That's this part of the hat. To stick out like this, the brim has to have the property of being stiff. Without that property, the hat's brim would flop down into the cowboy's eyes. And cowboy hats aren't the only good hats to protect you from the sun. Like, check out this one. This hat's called a bonnet, and it was worn by pioneer women. It has a stiff brim too to keep off the sun, just like the cowboy hat. But unlike the cowboy hat, it also has the property of being nice and soft. So it was very comfortable to wear. Okay, here's one last example. This is a traditional hat to wear in the desert. This hat is very soft too, but this one doesn't have a stiff brim. It's just loose cloth tied around the head. It may not block the sun from his face very well, but it definitely blocks the sun on his neck. Along with being soft, this hat has the property of being absorbent, so it's great at soaking up sweat. So those are some different hats made of materials with different properties. But now it's your turn. You're going to design a hat for yourself to wear on your desert island. What kind of hat will you need? What properties do you think your hat needs to have?
Okay, I want you to start thinking about what kind of hat do you think that you need and what properties will your hat need to have? So before you get started, I want you to be thinking about these things. What kind of hat do you think you need? What properties will they need to have? What will it need to look like? What will it need to be made out of? What are you going to be using it for?
In today's activity, you're going to make a hat to keep you cool on a desert island. First, let's talk about the problem you have to solve. What does your hat need to do? To get an idea of what a hat should do, let's take another look at some hats made for hot weather. Each of these hats has a stiff brim that shades you, and each one has a part that goes over your head. Seems like it'd be nice if that part was soft and soaked up sweat so that you stayed dry. So you're going to make a hat, but what materials are you going to use? You're on a desert island after all. All you have to work with are these lunch supplies from the boat, from when a lunchbox washed up on the beach. You'll look at each thing and decide whether it will be useful in making a hat. Rather than thinking about what the thing is, I want you to think about the material it's made of. Like, don't think of this paper plate as something you eat off of, or this paper bag as something to carry stuff in. Just think about how these materials can help you to shade your head. Are you ready to get started? You will work with a partner to test the properties of the materials you have. Then, each of you will make a hat, helping each other out as you work. In the end, the most successful hat will be the one that does the best job of blocking the sun. Okay, now I'll walk you through the activity step by step. Get these starting supplies. You'll get more supplies later. When you're done with this step, press the arrow on the right.
Okay, like I said earlier, you have a paper plate, the paper bag, and the string. You should have some sort of paper towel or napkin or a tissue. You could ask if you could use toilet paper for this paper towel piece. And then if you want and you have and your parents say it's okay, you might want to have them give you a piece of aluminum foil. Some of you might be very, very good and can get the aluminum foil ripped out of the container, but the edge on there, if you rip it funny, the aluminum foil can rip crazily, or you could end up cutting your finger on the little like jagged edge to rip it, but it cuts it. So maybe ask for some help doing that. So I'm gonna have you pause the video here and get those materials. And then in your mystery science packet, the sheet that they're asking you to look for is actually the second page. So not the cover, not the first page, but it's the next page after that. And it says Mad Hatter's worksheet at the top. Okay, and it says number 1, softness test, number 2, sweat soaker test, number 3, stiffness test. So you're gonna find that page. So press play when you've got your materials and a pencil and you're ready to go.
Softness test. Rub each material. Answer question 1 on the worksheet. You do this test to decide which materials feel soft enough to go on your head.
Okay, so rub each material. If it's soft to put on your head, then you're gonna circle it. So if you rub the foil and you thought it was soft, you could circle the foil. If you rub the paper bag and you thought it was soft, you'd circle it. So circle all of the soft items, the foil, the plate, the paper towel, or the paper bag.
Get these supplies for the next step.
Okay, if you can, go get a cup of water and a spoon. And the cup of water doesn't have to be in that cup. Okay, it can be in any cup that you have at your house.
Sweat soaker test. Use the spoon to drip water on each material. Answer question 2. You do this test because the part of the hat that goes on your head needs to be able to soak up sweat.
Okay, So for this test, obviously you don't want to soak your entire item. I'm going to stop the share for a second. Don't get your paper bag all wet. You're going to just dribble a little bit of water on it. So I would put my paper bag first on the table in front of me. And then I would get, I don't have a spoon here right now. I would get my spoon. I'll pretend this is my spoon. And I would take just a little spoonful of water and I would kind of go like this and then see how wet it got. Did it soak up the water or is it a puddle? And then I would lift my bag up and see how wet it was underneath. See if it soaked through. So did it soak up the water or did it just make kind of a big mess? So if it soaked up the water pretty well, then I would circle those items. If it just made a big mess or made a puddle or it went straight through, I probably wouldn't circle those items. Okay, so pause the video, do that.
Stiffness test. Hold each material like this to see if it droops down or stands stiff. Answer question 3. You do this test because your hat's brim needs to be stiff so that it doesn't flop into your eyes.
Okay, pause the video and hold each item up. Obviously the paper bag's a no. Okay, it just flops right on over. So try each item, circle it, mark it on your sheet with a circle.
Take a minute to discuss.
So, would there be a way to make any of your materials more stiff? So if my paper bag is really droopy, how could I make this be more stiff? And by stiff, hold on, I'm gonna stop the share again. By stiff, that means I want it to stay in its shape. So how could I make my bag be more stiff and stay in its shape when I pick it up? Obviously I could use 2 hands, but when I do it on my head, how could I make it not flop down in front of my face? Or maybe I do want this one to be like this so that it shades my face, okay? So this is where you're gonna start thinking about your plan. Your plan for what materials am I gonna use for the brim to soak up the sweat? What materials am I gonna use to have it shade the sun from my eyes?
Get the final supplies. These will help you put your hat together.
Okay, so I sent you home with a piece of string, but you're gonna need to find maybe some other supplies. Okay, they've got clothespins and clips. You could use paper clips. You might have to, you could use like the chip bag, the little clips that close your chip bags. You could use one of those. I'm trying to think of what else you might have at home. Some people have the little bread twists, or the little, you like push a button, it's made out of plastic and it opens and then it goes around the bread bag. I don't know, you might have to be creative on this one to get some sort of clip thing, something to hold it together that's not string. If you don't have clips, you don't technically need them to do your activity though. You can do it just with the string, the materials that I gave you, and some sort of paper towel, Kleenex, toilet paper, napkin item.
Make a hat that shades you from the sun. Share ideas and help your classmates. You don't have to use every material. If you're really stuck, ask your teacher for an inspiration sheet.
There is an inspiration sheet in your packet and it's the first page. So if I go back to the beginning, here's my cover. That first page is your inspiration sheet. It did not print super well, but it gives you some ideas. Okay. I felt like this page almost, or this screen almost gave you more ideas.
Your teacher will ask for volunteers to show off their hat and talk about its materials. Each person will answer these questions. What materials did you use? What properties of those materials were helpful?
So tomorrow, my class at least, I'm going to make a note because I'm the only one recording this. I would like you to come back tomorrow and have your hat ready to share. What materials did you use? What materials were helpful? Was it helpful that your bag wasn't stiff? Was it helpful that you had string? Did you find something, a material at home that was super helpful that maybe not everybody was able to use? Okay, so that's the end. We're gonna do the next mystery science later this week, and it's this one about the egg. So you have the rest of the time to go put together some sort of hat to help you shade the sun and keep you from not getting sunburned, since you're gonna be waiting for that boat for a while. So good luck building your hat, and I can't wait to see them tomorrow. Goodbye.